Welcome to Lunch with the Lord. I'm Pastor Mark, and we are in 2 Timothy. We're in chapter 2, and we're going to be starting verse 3 this lesson. But before we begin, Jeremiah 15:16, Thy words were found, and I did eat them, and thy word was unto me the joy and the rejoicing of my heart. As we saw last lesson, actually in chapter 2, verses 1 and 2, it deals with the transmitting of the faith. It deals with discipling others, discipling other believers. And God will be faithful when we disciple other believers to raise up people who will also in turn disciple others and pass down and transmit the Christian faith from generation to generation. But now here, starting in verse 3, where actually verses 3 and 4 deal with the single-minded soldier. The single-minded soldier. So as we start in verse 3, Paul here says, Thou therefore endure hardness as a good soldier of Jesus Christ. So he says, as a good soldier of Jesus Christ. Now, Paul equates the life of a soldier to that of a Christian. Now, let's take a look at some aspects of a soldier first. And as we look at each, I have 5 different aspects of a soldier, and then we're going to go into each one of them and see how they apply to the Christian. So, the first aspect of being a soldier is, number 1, they are taken from their homes and from their friends for the good of the country. The second aspect is they must be trained in diverse weather conditions. Number 3, they are subject to long, tiring marches. Number 4, destitute of food. And lastly, number 5, properly trained in the weapons of their army. And there's many more that you could add to this list. But let's look at each one of these in particular and see how they relate to the Christian. So the first aspect is they are taken from their homes and friends for the good of the country. Now, the Christian soldier is told not to love their father or their mother or their sister or brother or to love any other human being more than God. After all that he has done for us, the mockings, the teachings, the scourgings, the crucifixion, the resurrection, Jesus said in Matthew 8:38, if we are ashamed of him and his words in this adulterous and sinful generation, then he will be ashamed of us. In Matthew 10, verse 37, it says, he that loves father or mother more than me, they're not worthy of me. And he that loves son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. Some Christians in other countries are cast out and rejected and considered dead by their parents. That's true. In some cultures around the world, when a person comes to Christ, it goes against their family beliefs, and their father or mother look upon their son or daughter now as dead. So one serious thing when we come to Christ, especially in other cultures, in other countries, based upon their religious beliefs or the customs in their land, coming to Christ You don't put father or mother, son or daughter, or aunt or uncle or anybody else ahead of Christ after all that he's done for us. God says, if you're ashamed of me, I'll be ashamed of you. If you put other people ahead of me, you're not worthy of me. Have you been rejected by parents or by friends when you become a Christian? Right? Maybe you have. I think each one of us, to some degree, when we came to Christ, we experienced a rejection. People, friends that we used to have, they don't want to hang around us anymore. They don't really want us being around them anymore. And they reject us, or because of what we believe. Jesus said, if they reject you, they're rejecting me. They're not rejecting you. Jesus said to his disciples, the world cannot hate you, but it hates me. So if you're being rejected or persecuted, it's because of Christ in you. But he's worth it. He's worth it. He's way, way more than worth it. So maybe you have experienced rejection by friends or family because you came to Christ. But again, that's what a soldier of Christ does. They have to be willing to forsake family in order for the good of the warfare, right? The second aspect we mentioned is they must be trained in diverse weather conditions. God's call is not always to the nice tropical places. There are unsaved people in cold and in desert places, and someone will be called to go and preach to them. There's missionaries were sent to Alaska. Missionaries were sent to, different parts of the world where there's not much food, where there's hard weather conditions. People are sent there. God sends them there because why? There's unsaved people in all the world. Jesus said in John chapter 4, verse 35, that the fields are white and they are ready to harvest. But it doesn't mean that it will always be, it doesn't mean it'll always be summertime conditions there. The third aspect that we mentioned is the soldier, they are subject to long and tiring marches. And the Christian soldier must get used to the long marches of the faith. And this is very important. This aspect of what I'm bringing up now is very important to every Christian. Paul said in 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 7, at the end of his life, at the end of Paul's life, that he finished his course and he kept the faith. And there's people that you may know. I know there's people I know, and the testimony of their life now is they didn't finish the course. They did not keep the faith. They walked away from God. They've walked away from the Bible. And they gave their heart to worldly things, to people, to other things. So the Christian soldier must get used to long marches of the faith. Our walk with God is to be for what? For the whole life. Our walk with God should be for our whole life. Not until hard times come. Not only until prosperity comes. No. We walk with God through hard times, through prosperous times, but we always walk with God. The soldier walks through wonderful, beautiful days. He's marching and marching with the backpack on and a gun in his hand. And he marches, whether it doesn't matter if it's a beautiful sunshiny day or if it's raining or snowing or whatever's going on, hailing out, he's marching. And that's what we as Christians are to do. We are to stay. Paul said, I've finished my course. I've kept the faith. And how many Christians can say that? You're watching me as I'm preaching. So obviously you're continuing on. We're continuing on in the faith. And it doesn't matter. The outside, the external things shouldn't matter. You keep marching along with the Lord. Persevere in your walk with God. Persevere in prayer. Persevere in Bible study. Persevere in Christian relationships. You need to determine in your heart that you are going to go all the way with God. Determine in your heart you're going to go all the way with God. Because as I said, I know a number of people that I went soul winning with, I taught Bible school with, taught Bible school to, that I went missionary journeys with, and years ago, and they were strong in God, and you would have thought, wow, they're a great, strong Christian, and they're gonna be effective for God for years and years and years, and today they're far from God. Far from God. In fact, if you met some of them, you wouldn't even think they were saved. You wouldn't even think you would witness to them. You would have no idea. You would have no impression whatsoever that person went to Bible school, graduated Bible school, or that person was in a Bible school and finished, 3-4 years of Bible school. You would have no idea that person went soul winning in different countries of the world. And now, because circumstances or situations come along, they're out marching. They're a Christian. They're out. They got the backpack and they got the guns, and all of a sudden, here comes the snow. Now they want to give up and walk away. They want to go home. Right? Here comes the rain. Here comes the rain. It's not a beautiful day out. I don't feel like marching in the rain. Oh, I want to go home. And they go home. Oh, it's a beautiful day. Look at that. The leaves are turning reds and yellows and greens. Oh, it's wonderful. It's a nice, cool day. I love marching on a day like, oh, it's easy to be a Christian today. Right? But as soon as the wind comes, the rain starts pelting on you, you want to go home. And I know a number of them, they've gone home. Doesn't mean they're not saved. Doesn't mean they're not going to heaven. Just means they've given up. They've stopped walking with the Lord. You know what? They don't march with Christ in all kinds of weather conditions. They don't stay the course. They don't walk with God through the valley of the shadow of death. And they see the weather and they turn around. I'm not in for this. I was in for the good weather, but I'm not staying for this rainy weather. Not staying for the snow and the cold. No, not marching in the cold and the snow. I'm going home. And they go. You don't see them anymore. And it's a shame. So Paul here equates the Christian life to a soldier, and we've got 2 more aspects to go over, and I'm going to go over them next lesson, all right? But until then, keep walking with the Lord. Don't let the weather conditions make you to turn back. You determine in your heart you're going to stay true to God in prayer, all right? Walk with the Lord. I know He walks with you.